Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of 2025. To kick off, we will have Job Kamau, class of 2000, giving us a presentation on matters curriculum. Job is an educator with years of experience and on matters curriculum and education in general. I will let him introduce himself further before he goes on with the presentation. Remember, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box and we will have Job respond to them. He will walk us through the presentation he has and then give some time at the end for any questions you may have and any clarifications that you may seek. Karibu sana Job, take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric, for organizing these sessions. That's very great. Now, good evening to those who have managed to join now or are here. So as Eric has said, my name is Job Kamau, class of 2000. Been in the education sector for a while now. And this is just going to be a very open discussion based on experience. So I don't come here as an expert. I know I'm dealing with brilliant minds. So I'm not here as an expert. I'm just here based on experience and what we have been doing over the years, even as we embraced the shift or transition from 844 to C that will be shared at the end of the session, so that you can feel free just to reach out if you have any questions. I'll be very available to guide. For me, I'll just speak today as an advisor or a guide, not an expert. So let me just put out that disclaimer right from the beginning that I'm here just based on experience, not as an expert. So I know most of us, being that we've all gone through the Kenyan curriculum 844, we will more leaning on the CBC curriculum. So I'll tend to lean more on that, but I'll also very quickly just touch through other curriculums that we have in on offer in Kenya. So I'll just move very fast through the presentation. So that's the introduction bit. So I think the first bit is usually on the choice of school. This would be for new parents, definitely. We're not talking about very old parents, because I know we have a mixture of, senior old boys and young old boys. But this one is just a brief overview, which of course Eric will be sharing the recording afterwards. You can go through at your own pace. But on choice of school, then the curriculum and teaching approach should be one of the major factors you look at. What curriculum is on offer in the school that you want your child to join, and at the same time, what is the teaching approach? Because there are various teaching approaches. Now, remember, when you are actually enrolling your child in a school, you are the client. I usually find parents who do not take this responsibility seriously. So you walk into a school and within 5 minutes, you made your decision and then you walk out. It's very, very important for you to get down to very, very important points and factors that will help you choose a school. So curriculum is very important. And just to touch on curriculum, which is on this next slide as an introduction, there is no perfect school. So let no one lie to you that there's a perfect school. Even for myself, the school that I lead, I would not call it a perfect school. So there's no perfect school. So as there's no perfect school, there's also no curriculum that is superior to the other. So that's a question I usually get from many parents. Which curriculum is superior? Which curriculum will set up my child for success? Which curriculum, is really well versed with what is happening currently and in the future. So no curriculum is superior to the other. Each curriculum has its own strong points, and it also has areas that can be improved. So we are not here to say that, or rather I'm not here to say that one curriculum is better than the other. No. It will all depend on the goals that you have for your child. Yeah. So as you are choosing a curriculum, what are the education goals that you have for your child? So that's very, very important. So the responsibility, again, does not lie on us as educators to guide or rather advise you on the curriculum, it's you to sit down with your partner, or sit down with family, or sit down with your child and find out what are some of the goals that you have for your child. That will really inform the choice of curriculum that you will actually go ahead to choose for your child. So it's very, very important for me to put this out here. I'm not here to say that one curriculum is better than the other. I have an experience in 3 curriculums, and they all have their own strong points, and they all have areas that they can be improved. So let's start from that. So as you're choosing the school, please be very clear, find out what's the curriculum and the teaching approach. I usually advise parents to avoid schools that offer more than one curriculum, because you go to a school that says we offer CBC and we offer Cambridge, or we offer CBC and we offer Pearson and Excel. That usually for me is a red flag, because at the end of the day, one curriculum usually suffers. Then at the same time, they use the same instructors to cut down costs. They use the same instructors for both curriculums. So it's already too confusing. One curriculum is already too heavy for a teacher. So when you give them 2 curriculums to handle parallel, it becomes definitely one ends up suffering. So as you're choosing the curriculum or the school, please be very clear from the beginning, find out which curriculum it is, and avoid schools that offer more than one curriculum. It's very good for a school. It's very important for a school just to specialize. Then, of course, look at the school reputation and credentials, do your research, do your background check. There are schools that have been on social media for bullying. There are others that are there for just lewd behaviors. So it's very important for you to be clear what is the school reputation and credentials. Also very important is to find out if the school, but are they licensed by the Ministry of Education actually to carry out their services as a school. So it's very important for you to find out, because sometimes we enroll our children in schools, then when it comes to examinations, the administration starts giving you stories. I don't know, we have to have them sit in another center and all that. Then, of course, location and accessibility. Yeah, so even us as parents, please, let's also be very, very considerate of our children. Yeah, some of our children have to go so far. Why? Why do you have to have a child wake up at 5 a.m. just to go to Makini just because it has a name, or to go to Riara, or to go to Brayburn, or to go to Brookhouse? So it's very, very important for you just look for a school that is accessible and that is located near where you are. For the teacher ratio, what's the student teacher ratio in a particular school? So it's important for you to also find out. It's your right, because again, as I've said, it's a huge responsibility that this education journey for your child. So you can also just go ahead and ask, are your teachers qualified? Speak to a few teachers. How are the relationship with the students? How is the student teacher ratio? Of course, cost and budget considerations also. Yeah. So don't go for schools that will be off your budget. Then you are definitely struggling. Yeah. I know as Kenyans, sometimes we do want to be seen that, yes, we are doing well, but at the same time, work within your budget. There are schools that will be within your budget. I'm not here to discuss schools, but as you do your research, work within your budget. That will really give you ease of mind, and will also give your child ease of mind when they're attending schools. Infrastructure and facilities is very, very important. Please choose a school that has playground, children learn through play. Do they have facilities? I know there are many schools that are estate schools, and therefore they also are very constrained in terms of space. So it's important for you just to check the infrastructure. Another important factor will be parental involvement and communication. So as you're enrolling a child, also ask, how often do you communicate with parents? Do we have a PTA? Do you have parent representatives? Do you have parent meetings? How often are the parent meetings? How are parents involved? Do you have activities that parents can attend? So if you find a school that is very open in terms of parental involvement and communication, that transparency should build confidence, because at the end of the day, it means that they have nothing to hide. So that's also a very, very important factor. So if you go to a school, like I know some of us rush to these schools that have huge populations, you find a school has 800, 1,000. Definitely you will not attend many activities or events, because if the learners themselves cannot fit in a field, how will the 800 plus parents fit? Then also safety and hygiene standards. It's good for you to also find out from the school in issues of DOSH, have they used of fire, or what are their emergency evacuation? Do they have a safety committee? all that. So those are some. Then I will do two extremes, then come to the middle one. But as Eric said, if you have any question, please just feel free to chip in so that I'm able to address your needs. I know we came here with expectations, so it's important for us to be able to meet your needs. So we have the different curriculums that are on offer in different schools in Kenya. So the first one and the common or major one that takes the biggest percentage is CBC. So that's a Kenya national curriculum, competency-based, because the curriculum is tailored in a way that it builds the competencies of the learners, the 7 competencies. Then the second one, also common one, is the British National Curriculum, the BNC. So there's the BNC, the British National Curriculum. So there are schools that offer BNC, like Rusinga, Braeburn, those ones offer BNC. That's the curriculum that's done in Britain. Then we have the Cambridge curriculum. That's now the British National Curriculum, but offered for international schools. Those are schools outside Britain. Then we have Pearson and Excel. So under the British National Curriculum, we have the BNC itself, we have Cambridge curriculum, then we have Pearson and Excel. Then the other curriculum that is on offer is the IB, which Aga Khan Academy is very, I think it's one of the major schools offering. So in IB, we have the International Primary Curriculum, or the Primary Years Program, then the Middle Years Program, then the Diploma. Then the curriculum that is not so famous, or rather it's not so, doesn't have a huge uptake, is the ACE, the Accelerated Christian Education. So as I said, choice of curriculum depends on the education goals you have. You find most of parents who go for ACE are parents who want a value-based education, or rather an education that has a Christian foundation. So those are the choice of curriculums we have in place. Then, as I said, I will to extremes. I know there are parents here who have grade 9s, and I had one question about how is the assessment or how is the placement going to be done. Now, unfortunately, it's so unfortunate that the Ministry of Education and NEC have not yet released the criteria for placement. We are still in the dark. Yeah. So they keep telling us to wait. We were given a timeline of May. So that's when we expect proper information about the placement, when the children now will be moving from grade 9 to grade 10 senior school. But if I'm to speak to the parents who are now in grade 9, let me share something else here I did with the school. So they have 9 assessment areas, but as you know, the assessment in CBC has shifted. In terms of now, we talk of the school-based assessments. These are the assessments that are usually ongoing during the school year. So the base assessments start in grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, right? Yeah, and then they say that these school-based assessments, the SBAs, will account for 40%. It will account for 40% of the overall score. So previously what was happening is that KCPE was a summative assessment. Summative assessment means it comes at the end. Yeah, so summative assessment means it comes at the end. That's assessment of learning. It comes at the end of the 8 years. But now what's happening is that CBC has split the assessment into 2. So there is 40% that is going to be for the school-based assessments. So some of these assessments, I'm sure you've seen them at home, and that's what is usually keyed in the NEC portal. So that usually accounts to 40% at grade 6. That usually accounts for 60%, right? Then now from there, they move to junior high. Yeah. So once they move to junior high, they are now going to against their school-based assessments, grade 7, grade 8, grade 9. And that again will account for 40%. So those school-based assessments. Okay, so what I was saying is for the assessment format for CBC, so we have the school-based assessment, which will account for 40%, and then KIPSEA, which you sit at grade 6, will account for 60%. Same when they go now to junior high, grade 7, 8, 9, they have the school-based assessments that they do over the course of the years, that will account for 40%. Then when they do the kids share, it will account for 60%. So that's how the assessment format has changed. So for grade 9, they will do 9. They have 9 examinable or other examinable subjects they will sit for. Then now we look at the placement. Someone had asked about the placement. Of course, we have the pathways. We have the different pathways. So we have arts and sports science, which definitely the government is saying will account for like 15%. The schools will account for 15% of the candidates. Reason being it's more talent-based. Then we have language and social sciences, which have languages and literature, humanities and business, which they're saying will account for 25% of the candidates. Then we have STEM. I'm sure most of us are all interested in STEM, being that we went to Alliance. So STEM, which has the sciences, applied sciences, technical engineering, the tech staff, careers, technology studies, that only account for 60%. So 60% of the learners. Now, here comes the bad news. We will not have national schools anymore. I think someone had asked that question. So all national schools, extra county, county, sub-county, all those schools are going to be abolished. Yeah. So we will not have Alliance, sorry to break the bad news, we will not have Alliance being a national school. So what the government is going to do, they're going to categorize the current secondary schools into pathways. So you might have a school like Alliance, being that it has infrastructure, it can hold more than one pathway. So it can actually hold the 3 pathways, right? So this categorization will all depend on the infrastructure and the facilities that a school has. So if a school has enough facilities to handle more than one pathway, then that school will be categorized to handle 1, 2, 3 pathways. So that is the work of the Ministry of Education. They have not yet done that, as I said, unfortunately. Then from there, we talked about how is the assessment going to be done. I think someone had asked that question. So number 1, the first assessment is what I've spoken about. There's a formative assessment that will account for 40%. Then the summative assessment that will account for 60%. That's number 1 criteria that's going to be used for assessment. So they will sit for the kids share at the end of grade 9. And then definitely the 60% from kids share will be added to the 40% SBS course they have been having in grade 7, 8, 9. That's number 1. Number 2, NEC has also developed questionnaires. So NEC is going to give out questionnaires to the students. Then these questionnaires will have questions like where are their talents, where are their skills, where do they feel the best fit. So these questionnaires again are being developed. They will be sent out to schools and then students will be able to fill in. That will help in terms of the selection criteria. Then number 3, there are going to be special considerations for talents and skills. So schools will be requested to hand the names of talented and skilled students to NEC. So it's good for you to, if you know you have a talented child, you know you have a child who's skilled maybe in art, a child who's skilled in music, it's good for you just to put it out there to the school that I feel my child has this talent and skill. So those are the 3 ways that NEC is going to use to assess. That's the assessment criteria that is going to be used by NEC. Then from there, the career pathway now will be generated. After NEC has taken the 3 steps, the career pathway now is generated. Yeah, I hope you can see career pathway generated. So how will the placement be done? It will depend on availability of slots in senior school. Yeah, and this is where I'm saying now national schools will no longer be in play, because there's going to be equality and inclusivity. So we are not going to have learners coming all the way from Mandera to Kikuyu just to join Alliance. So it's going to be equality and inclusivity, and it's going also to be based on geographical and regional balance. So what the Ministry of Education is planning to do, they're planning to look at, if you're in Kikuyu, that's Kiambu County, then we are going to locate a school that is accessible and close to you, and that is where the placement is going to be done. Yeah, because now this time we don't have national schools, so there's no point of traveling all the way across so many counties just to attend a national school. But again, as I've said, at the bottom right, I have put it in red, the placement has not yet been made clear. So nobody knows don't have anyone lying to you or schools lying to you. This information is still not yet to be released. So we don't know how the placement is going to be done. We don't know if it's going to be SMSs. We don't know whether it's going to be letters as they have been doing, sent to the portal. We have no idea. But what we know is that terms of national schools, extra county, sub-county, county, those ones are going to be abolished, and the slots are going to be made available based on the geographical location, and there has to be quality and inclusivity. That means even the special education needs will also not be left out. So I hope that answers the question about those who have grade 9s transitioning to grade 10. So if schools do not give information, please don't panic. It's because they also don't have the information. So the information is being released with time. We are given a timeline of May. We'll keep waiting. So maybe we can revisit in May and see if parents who have grade 9s have a bit of understanding. Yeah, but right now it's important for you to have a discussion with your child or your children. Find out which pathway do they feel they're more suited for STEM? Do they feel they're more suited in languages and social sciences? Do they feel they're more suited in arts and sports sciences? So please don't choose for them. Yeah, just allow them this chance to have a discussion with them, and then find out from them where do they feel they will fit in well. Now, the other bit you need to note is that whatever pathway you pick, you will have, or rather your child will have to follow through to campus. So I hope you can see that slide. So it talks of senior school. So senior school, you can see we have grade 10, 11, 12. So after 12, they are supposed to proceed to tertiary education, rather university or TVET. Now, whatever pathway they choose for senior school is the pathway that they will have to follow through with university. Unless now you want them to join a private university, like the likes of Strathmore, where, whatever, Tangaza University, Open University, and the likes. But if you want them to join UON, you want them to join JQAT, you want them to join KU, then whatever pathway they have chosen in senior school is what they will proceed with to university. So it's important for you to also be very, very careful and keen as you're choosing the pathway, and then make it clear to your child that once you choose this pathway, this is what you're going to stick with all the way to campus. It's not like us when we are doing, Form 4, and then after Form 4, you can get into first year, try a bit of BBA. If you feel it doesn't work for you, you switch to BEd, you switch like that. For this, it's going to be you stick on one pathway, then you move ahead. Another question that parents have really been asking is, can my child do more than one pathway? Like, can my child do art and sports science, and at the same time, can they do STEM? Again, we don't have clarity from the government. It will all depend on the structure of the school. Yeah, so we don't have yet clarity on that. So maybe you may have your child telling you, I want to be a musician, and at the same time, I want to be a doctor. So we don't yet have clarity on that. So we will still wait as the information is released if a child can really participate in more than one pathway. So that's now the transition from grade 9 to senior school, from junior high to senior school. I hope now I have at least shed some light on parents who have that question. Yeah. So that was the extreme I was talking about. So we've spoken about the assessment criteria, we've spoken about the pathways, and we've spoken about now the transition to senior school. Now, the other extreme I was saying I will go back to is now when we have, of course, we have young parents. So for young parents, what happens when you're choosing the school, especially in early years? Let me go back to the presentation. When you are choosing early years, you have your child, you have possibly a 2.5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, you want them to join school. Now, it's very important for you to note that early years is the foundation. Some of us take it lightly. So that's the foundation stage. So does it matter the school? Of course it matters the school. Does it matter the curriculum? Of course that one matters depending on the goals. But what you need to remember is that as you visit these schools, please find out, one, forget about the curriculum, because I know most of us as parents will run for Montessori. You say Montessori, I want a school that does Montessori. I want a school that does Reggio Emilia. I want a school that does, I don't know, they do IEYC. So that should not even be the case for you. So the case for you when you are looking for a school for your young child or children, one, as you visit these schools, find out literacy, because that's the main bit for any child who's joining school at the foundation stage. Literacy, do they have a reading program? If they have a reading program, how robust is the reading program? I once visited Banda School and they have an excellent reading program. So you also have to find out, do they have a robust reading program? What is their reading program about? How do they promote reading? How do they involve parents when it comes to reading? Two, what system do they use in terms of teaching reading? Yeah, so Jollyphonics is a system, because sometimes you find that there are schools that follow a different system, and that makes it very difficult for the children to be able to read, or they take longer to read. But schools that use Jollyphonics, you'll find at 4 years children are able to read. Then pre-writing skills. How do they develop their pre-writing skills? Pre-writing skills, they were talking about holding the pencil, being able to write, being able to copy from the board and all that. How do they develop that? Then another very important point you should also research on is the personal socio-emotional development. That's very important for the young children, because it's at this point where they learn how to share, they learn how to interact with their peers, they learn how to regulate their emotions. They learn a lot of emotional development. So it's important for you to ask a school, do they have social emotional learning? How do they integrate social emotional learning in their teaching? All those questions. Then another very important point for the earliest is the physical development, because children at this age learn through play. And then this is a stage where they develop their gross motor skills by playing and by jumping around. So play is very, very vital. So if you go to a school that doesn't have a playground, and yet they say they are offering early years or preschool, that again should be a red flag. Then again, extracurricular activities. What extracurricular activities are on offer? How do they develop or bring out the talents in their children? Because you find once you develop the talents early, then the children themselves should be able to pick it up even as they move. Because right now we're talking about a holistic child. So as we talk about holistic child, it's important for you to find out what extracurricular activities are there and how are they set up. Yeah, so at least I've tackled the two extremes. So when you're joining early years, please forget about the curriculum, forget about Montessori. Just look at those factors: literacy, then look at the reading, then look at the pre-writing skills, the personal, social, emotional development, physical development, and then look at the extracurricular activities. Then if you go to primary, of course, we have the different curriculums having different stages, but you find most of them have up to stage 6, or rather year 6, grade 6, apart from IB, which has up to year 5. So at the end of the primary, at the end of year 6, at the end of grade 6, there's usually an exam. So for the Cambridge, you'll find they have something they call checkpoints. For the grade 6, we have KIPSEA. Then they proceed to junior high. Junior high, again, we have 3 years of junior high in both CBC and the British National Curriculum. But IB itself has a secondary program running for 6 years. Yeah, so at the end of junior high, that's grade 9, year 9, there's an exam, which is checkpoints for Cambridge, and then we have KIPSEA now for the CBC. Yeah, then they now proceed to senior high. We've discussed this, the transition. So here is where you will have, Cambridge, they proceed to year 10, where they now talk of sitting for the GCSEs in year 11. Then we have the IB running all the way to their diploma program running all the way to 16 years, and then they move ahead to AS, A-levels, BTech diploma. I won't go deeper into that because these ones are more on the international curricula. Then we look at the frequently asked questions. So we have frequently asked questions by parents. So one frequently asked question is, at what point can my child transition from CBC to the international curricula? Now, just to point out briefly, the British National Curriculum and the IB. So the IB is more of inquiry-based learning. So there's a lot of projects, a lot of research, a lot of inquiry-based. That's now the main difference. I know people may be wondering what's the difference between IB and the rest. So your child can transition from CBC to international curricula because the entry point is based on age. Yeah, so it's age based. But now the opposite. But now if you look at the last point, at what point can my child transition from the international curricula to the CBC curriculum? Now that poses a problem. That if you look at the last point, that poses a problem. If you want to transfer your child from international curricula to the CBC curriculum, you have to wait until the end of particular stages. Because remember, we said that there is the formative assessment that accounts for 40%. So if your child has not done this SBA in grade 3, 4, 5, 6, then definitely they will miss out on the 40%. So you have to wait. So they either join when they're in junior high, that's grade 7, or they either join grade 10. So it's a very, very, if you're transitioning from international to CBC, it's something you really need to sit down and plan well. And that's why we said from the beginning, as you're choosing your school, please look at cost and whatever, and your budget, so that you don't have to keep shifting from, especially international to CBC. It causes a lot of problems, but CBC to international anytime, because that's age. Then the second point, will my child join local universities if they did not pursue the Kenya National Curriculum? Yes. So we have the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. So you just go to them and they'll convert the scores to an equivalent of Kenya, and they can join local universities if you want them to join. Yeah, so that should not be an issue. Why is international curricula expensive? We find these schools are very expensive. The accreditation is done by international bodies. And additionally, there's a program fee that is paid annually. So like if you have 3 programs, that's early years, you have primary, you have secondary, you pay almost 1.5 million per year to the international body. So that, of course, balloons the cost. Then there's also a fee paid by schools to join the Association of International Schools. So again, to be a part of international schools, you have to pay a fee. So the international curricula also becomes expensive because the exams are also very expensive. So as you plan, you also need to plan very wisely, because the exams are also not cheap, and the exams will fall on you as the parents. Additionally, the books are also not cheap. So that's part of the reason why you find the international schools are quite expensive. Must my child sit for A-levels? No, that's not a must, but it will hugely depend on the career path. So if they're going for STEM, definitely they have to do it. If they're doing humanities, then it's not, but it's highly recommended, especially if your child went through international curricula, because remember, they'll finish year 11 when they're 16. Would you want to take your child to campus when they're 16? I mean, there's a bit of emotional immaturity that might be there. So we always advise parents to have their children go for A-levels. Then that's the CBC curriculum. I think Eric will share this. You can look at this. It's 2 years in kindergarten, preschool, then 6 years for primary, 6 years. That's 3 years junior high, 3 years senior high, then 3 years tertiary. There's a link at the bottom. Read more on the CBC here. There's a link. You can click the link down here, and then you'll be able to, if you click the link, you'll be able to read more on the CBC. Then there's a Cambridge curriculum. So you have the pathways. So you have from early years, there's early years, 2 to 5 years. Then we have Cambridge primary, Cambridge lower secondary, Cambridge upper secondary, and Cambridge advanced. If you want to read more about Cambridge curriculum, there's a link at the bottom. You can see the link at the bottom there. You can read some bit more just to do your research. Then there's a curriculum, which is divided into UIP, MIP, and diploma. Again, you can read more about the IB curriculum at the bottom. There is a link there. You can read more there. Then we have the ACE curriculum. ACE curriculum, the Accelerated Christian Education. This one does not have instructors. It's usually self-paced learning. So what we have is just facilitators. So kids usually have packs or books, and then they work at their own pace. So we don't have direct teaching happening here. But you can watch a summary. There's a video down there which can help you watch or get the summary. Then let's look at pros and cons of CBC. What are some of the pros? The advantage is that it focuses on skills and competencies. Yeah, we say there are 7 competencies. So we have digital literacy, we have imagination and creativity, we have problem solving and critical thinking, we have communication and collaboration. So that's the focus. Then there's individualized learning. If the school actually implements the CBC properly, then there's parental involvement. I'm sure most of you complain a lot when you're told print this, help build a project, help come up with a kitchen garden, help maybe cook some chicken and take to the teacher or something. So parental involvement and engagement is there. So it encourages you to participate. I'm sure we have experienced this. There's continuous assessment. As we've said, there's a formative assessments that happen all through, and at least these ones account to the final exam. So if something happens during the final exam, if something happens during KIDSEA, you still have the formative assessments to fall back on. Then we have creativity and talent development. Again, if it's implemented properly, we have localized relevance. Yeah, because now it focuses on Kenya. It focuses on Kenya issues. If it's geography, it's Kenya. If it is history, we are speaking more of Kenya. Then the disadvantages would be implementation challenges. Yeah, we don't have resources and training. Most of the teachers who are actually implementing the curriculum are 844 trained. So you find that they do a lot of the things 844 way. They don't implement it the way it's supposed to be. Then, of course, for you, there's a parental burden. Some of us work so hard. We work long hours. We don't have time. Some of us travel a lot. So definitely we don't have time to be around to actually run through these projects. And then some of the schools are usually last minute. So you get home after long days of work, you're told, Dad, I need 20 maize or other beans tomorrow for class. Then you're wondering, where am I supposed to get beans from at 9 p.m.? Then inconsistent standards, urban-rural disparities. Of course, the rural communities are really suffering. There was one such question about how is income, how is this disparity going to be taken care of? But I'm afraid I'm not in a position to respond to that because that falls on the Ministry of Education. But this will tell you that the rural children are actually not getting the whatever you call value for money. They're not getting the CBC implemented very well, because you can imagine, if you're talking of digital literacy, how many schools in the rural areas have just access to electricity? Forget even about computers themselves. Do they have electricity? So if they don't have electricity, then how is this competency of digital literacy going to be transferred to the learners? So that's now the problem. Then unclear pathways. Yeah, that's why we are here. So most of the parents, or most of us as parents, we are very much in the dark, especially the pioneer class, the grade 9s. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's happening next. We don't know what's going on. So that unclear pathway is really disadvantageous. Then we look at the international curricula. What are some of the pros and cons? The advantages for the international global recognition, of course, it can be recognized anywhere. Then standardized assessments, the grading is done globally. There's critical thinking emphasis. Then there's broad subject range, like we talk of the Cambridge curriculum having over 70 plus subjects. They have coding, they have computing, they have well-being, they have global perspectives, they have something they call tourism and travel. They have so many subjects. They have Mandarin, they have Spanish, all those. So they have so many subjects that they offer. Then there's a lot of teacher support. So there's a lot of extensive training and resources. So those ones are very much available, and that makes the teachers to be up to date with the current trends. Then of course the disadvantage is costly. Yeah, the exams are very costly. We talk of an average of maybe 25,000 per exam. So if a child is sitting for 8 exams, you can see that's almost 200,000. Then there's exam pressure. This is one curriculum that still has grades. So we have like grades A star to F, others to G. So you find parents who want to join the school will come and ask me, how did your students perform in the last exam? So there's that exam pressure. And then there's limited local context. It lacks cultural and local relevance. So we have children learning about geography, their history, they're learning about, the Roman Empire. If it's geography, they're learning about maybe Mesopotamia is history. Geography, they're learning about, the geography of UK and all that, which of course does not. So teachers have to constantly keep, customizing it to the local context. Then there's less practical focus. So as I said, since there's a lot of pressure on exams and performance, teachers will tend to cut corners and not be more focused on practicals, rather be focused on grades. I've tried to run through very fast. So I think now, Eric, I'll take it back to you if there are any questions. But I'll look at first the questions that were there from the form. But I think I've responded to all of them. Yeah, I've responded to the end of national schools. That one I've said is an end. I've responded to assessment results. I've responded to progression and transition. Those ones I have responded to. So I want to thank those who put down their questions on the form. I have responded to them. So maybe Eric, if you have any other questions, you can maybe.
So we have questions from the audience. First one, could you give your views on homeschooling as an option?
Homeschooling is great, Eric. The good thing is that homeschooling has become structured. In terms of, in fact, they usually hold yearly conventions. Like we had one last year in Karen, where the Homeschooling Association, guided by this association in America, so they were having a bit of convention where they were trying to also sensitize Kenyans. So in a structured, it has to be structured. Homeschooling is excellent, it has to be structured. But again, as I said, it all depends on the education goals of your child. Because why do we take our children to school? We take our children to school mostly because of the social interactions. So homeschooling, in my opinion, will not be great for a child who is reserved or an introvert, because that's not how the world is going to be. They will still at one point have to interact with the world. But if you have a very outgoing child and you know your child will always interact, that's okay. Or rather, if you have an introvert but you give them opportunities to be out there, that's okay. But there are so many virtual schools and we have very many homeschooling structured programs. But as long as it is structured, it's okay. But not waking up in the morning and you're not sure what your child is doing. They have no structure. They can just do whatever they want to do. Then the other tricky bit is that when they're integrated into now a mainstream school, they usually have a bit of challenges from my experience, but not that challenges that cannot be overcome. But I would say yes, homeschooling is great as long as it's a structured program.
Thank you. Another question we have, while in senior school, will learners be allowed to change pathways, say before they get to grade 12?
That's now the question I'm saying we are still not clear on, but it should be possible dependent on the school, because as I've said, there are schools that will be selected to offer more than one pathway. So if you're not sure of whether your child will be, or your child is not sure of what pathway they are supposed, or what pathway they desire to follow, it's good to have selection in a school that will have more than one pathway. But if now you happen to be placed in a school that has one pathway, then that will definitely pose a problem. Yeah, but it's not yet clear, so I cannot give a yes or no answer. We are still waiting for direction from the ministry.
I think a follow-up to that would be once your child is in a certain school, does it then mean that they cannot transfer to another school once they go to like the senior secondary level?
To transfer, they can transfer. What I've said, it will depend on the stages that they're transferring, but to transfer, they will transfer. Transfer doesn't have a problem, because what happens is that now we have the NEC portal, which definitely when you're moving to another school, you'll ask the head teacher in that other school to initiate a transfer, and they're able to transfer. So transferring is not out of the question. What might be the tricky bit would be based on space and availability. Yeah, but transferring should not be a problem. Actually, transferring, I meant when you're moving from a different curriculum to CBC, because you see CBC has that school-based assessments. But if you're moving within CBC to CBC, you can transfer. There's never an issue that because the scores will always be transferred on the portal. So transfers will be possible.
Thank you. The last question we have from the audience is, what happens if you choose the career for them? Is there a highly likely chance for the child to fail, or how will that play out? I know you had mentioned earlier the importance of having an honest conversation with your child to know exactly what it is they're best suited for, in their opinion. So where does the place of the parent choosing for the child come in?
Okay. I did mention that NEC are developing questionnaires, which will be given not to the parent, but will be given to the learners through the school. So these questionnaires are going to be a very powerful tool when it comes to placement in the different pathways. So I would highly suggest that as parents, I know sometimes we really work so hard to control, but this time let go. Please let go. What you can do is guide. Just guide. Just have an honest conversation right from now and ask your child, what do you feel? Where do you feel your strength lies? Because you may start choosing for your child's STEM because we want, we are seeing AI, we are seeing, coding is what is coming up, and we are seeing the future is going to be, tech driven. So you insist that no, my child has to be in tech, but your child has no interest. Your child maybe has interest in music. So times are changing. As long as your child is going to be happy and they are going to excel in it, then definitely let them choose. In terms of passing or failing, I'm sure even for us, we have members who have had parents pushing them to do a particular course. We do it. We give them we get the certificate. We don't fail. But at the end of the day, we are not happy and we end up pursuing our different paths. But the next questionnaire is going to be a very, very powerful tool which they will use. So either way, if you decide to meddle, NEC will still go back and look at the questionnaire and they will not listen to your opinion, rather they will follow what the questionnaire will be talking about. So I would really highly suggest for whoever asked the question to just have a discussion with the child, and then if you really want them to pursue what you have in mind, please put forward your points and put them in a subtle manner where they don't feel pressured.
As a follow-up to that, I mean, given that there are quite a number of us who went to university and years later, many of us, there's a good number of us that are not doing what we studied university.
Yes.
Does that not mean also that even for CBC, a child who may have gone through the STEM option and later in life finds that they're actually a very good artist, or even vice versa, it doesn't mean that that's the end of them doing what it is they actually want to do later in life. I suppose that would still be as true for them as it is for us who went through the other systems before CBC.
Yes. Correct.
Thank you. So any other questions from the audience before we sign off? We are just about at the hour mark.
I think, Eric, my contact is there. I don't know if you can see it. So if we do have any member who would like to reach out and just consult in terms of just the different curriculums, you want to consult about schools. I steered away from discussion about schools because, as I said, there's no perfect school. I know also wherever I am, we also have our own areas to improve. But if you do want some guidance in terms of just being able to choose, if you want some guidance or if you want me to be giving you regular updates of transition to senior school, especially for those who have children in grade 9, because we are in networks and groups that share right from KCD, then maybe they can have the contact and reach out. I will definitely respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are truly grateful, Job, for this very informative session. I'm sure many people now have at least a good idea of stuff with curriculums, and more so CBC, which very many people had questions on. As you've pointed out, there are still places that are unclear, but we hope that in due course, those areas shall be clarified. We thank you for joining this first session of 2025.
Yeah. Eric, just a minute.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
I just want to advise parents, especially if you have your children in junior high 7, 8, 9, please implore or rather request the administration to have sessions for you as parents, just to speak more about the CBC because it's very broad, and then a request for a bit of capacity building. So I'm also available. We have a consultancy called Scaling Summits, consultancy. We do capacity building in different schools. So if you do request whatever your child goes to school, some of you might be on the PTA. Based that you went to Alliance, you must be put on the PTA. So you can request for a capacity building session for the school and for the parents. And then you can always reach out to us at Scaling Summits, and then we'll be able to come and facilitate. We can do it for free, just being an alumni, and just to be able to empower the parents that you're part of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There you go. You have no reason not to succeed in this journey with your children. We have, he said not to call him an expert, but a man with experience, with years of experience. So we have Job Kamau. Thank you very much, Job Kamau, for this session. We truly appreciate that. Thank you, the audience, for joining us. Thank you very much and have a good night.